Okay, welcome everyone to CPCW's AGM on Wednesday, 23rd of September 2020. We'll start off with welcome from myself, Chair of CPCW. All contractors have been sent a copy of our annual report, which includes my report as chairman, and also a second part of the report from our employees who work very hard for all the contractors across CPCW throughout the year. Although the annual report only takes us up to March, obviously by the end of March, we'd fallen into what has developed into the pandemic of COVID-19, which has obviously made working environment very different. And that, as I say, it just happened as we came to the close of the year that this AGM relates to. Also within the report is the financial declarations and the accounts, which obviously we will come on to in a bit. Moving on to the agenda, we have to approve the minutes of the AGM from last year, which was held on the 21st of September 2019. Again, these minutes have been circulated, so checking them firstly for accuracy. Is everyone happy that they're a true reflection of last year's AGM meeting? And if so, there were no particular matters arising, so I will sign those as a true and accurate account of last year's AGM, if everyone's happy. Okay, right, moving on. As I said, next item is the chairman's report. Does everybody want me to sit and read it out to you? I assume not. I assume everyone's read it. Certainly our committee members and any contractors who watch this item. Does anyone have any questions on the chairman's report? Is everyone happy with it? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. If we can move on to the financial declarations. Alison, is there anything you want to add?
No, there's nothing for me about the declarations. There's been no questions raised from contractors. Obviously, we just need to go into the voting.
Okay, in that case then, we shall go straight to voting. Does anyone object or disagree with the financial declarations that have been declared? And if they don't, then I assume that everyone then supports the declaration that's been made.
Just for the minutes, so we do open for postal votes. That they closed at 5 p.m. on Monday. We've had 104 postal votes in, all of which to accept the accounts. I have no rejections.
Okay, thank you very much, Alison. Any objections to them? If not, I assume everyone has said accepts the accounts and the financial declarations that have been made. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to the employee report. Again, that's been sent out to you. I will hand over to Adam and Suzanne, who have had an input into it. And again, I presume they're not going to read it out, but if anybody wants it read out to them, I presume one of you would. Adam, Suzanne.
If anyone requires to, then I'm more than happy to. I suppose I just wanted to point, the only things I was going to say around it is the report. It looks at the time period from April 2019 to March 2020, as you know. I mentioned right at the end of the report to any contractors watching around the response to COVID, but it actually belongs front and centre. The response for all contractors was absolutely breathtaking. The resilience, innovation and professionalism of community pharmacy contractors and their teams shone through right throughout the period, and I think it's really important. I want to say that as a CPCW employee and the view that I have of the system. It's really important just to say we stayed available to help patients in the most trying of times. You should be really immensely proud of that. And all of this in the context of increased pressures, obligations and the higher cost of operations that you're dealing with the overall system taking time to adjust to that, to make allowances and to support you. You're an absolute credit to the profession, and that's what I just want to say, to put on record ahead of the report.
Thank you very much, Adam. Suzanne, anything to add to the report? No. Okay, on behalf of the committee members, obviously our employee team working hard for all contractors, it continues to be fluid. I think it's probably one of the best description for it, whereby we had a change in employees at the start of last year or at the end of the year before. But I think, as Adam's just alluded to there, from all the committee members, on behalf of all employees, and that includes Alison as well, when we did come and hit COVID-19, I think they've all, including our newest employee, Rachel, as engagement officer, have all stepped up to give all the support to contractors that they possibly could. Obviously, that meant putting a lot of their current workload on hold, but at the same time trying to do that along with all the extra work which COVID-19 and pandemic has brought to contractors to support them in the best way they can. And I think all employees have done that. So I'm sure all contractors, including committee members, will be quite happy with a thank you to all our employees.
Thank you.
At that point then, having done the reports and the financial declarations, we're open to questions from anyone.
For anyone watching on YouTube, we have got the comments box, so if there's any questions there, I'll keep an eye on them and I'll make sure they're fed in, and that goes through the presentation from Lisa, our GPhC inspector, as well. So I'll keep an eye to make sure we capture them and answer them as best we can.
Okay, if there's no questions from anyone on our live stream, and as Adam says, if anybody watching this later does have any questions for CPCW, then please get in touch. All the details are online on the CPCW website. And other than that, I will draw this evening's AGM to a close. And at this point, it gives us all a great pleasure to welcome Lisa McCreesh back as our speaker for this evening, a long-serving committee member of this LPC in years gone by, although she has admitted to having only ever attended 2 AGMs. So it's very nice to welcome you back, Lisa, and you're going to, in your new role, which you left us for, give us hopefully some update and some useful information for all contractors out there. Welcome, Lisa.
Thanks very much, Gordon. As with all presentations, I hope you can hear me. The first thing I've done is I've left my headset on because I do come across, I think, a lot better when I've got microphone. However, we are having torrential rain here, and as you can see, I'm sat in the conservatory, so I hope you can hear. What I will do now, in the essence of technology, is I will share my screen and go through a short presentation and GPhC update. So, without further ado, apologies, I have lost the screen. Give me 2 seconds. Tony, it works first time when you're sort of not presenting, doesn't it? So there you go. Okay, hopefully, if somebody can just let me know verbally, because I've lost all your nice faces, that you can sort of both hear me and also you can see the presentation. Oh, that's not great, is it? Let's have a look. This worked so well, Adam, when we did it before, didn't it? It was, wasn't it? Let's try it slightly different. Do it the other way around.
Yeah,
excellent. Excellent. I will start then. So, thank you very much for sort of inviting me back. Do you know what? It is actually really good to see sort of like some faces from sort of like the LPC, but some faces sort of like from other aspects of sort of my sort of professional sort of career journey. So it has been a really difficult time, very difficult time for pharmacy. It's been a difficult time sort of personally for everybody, and there's been a lot of challenges for the GPhC as well. So this will be a short summary update. Thank you, Gordon, you introduced me. So I am Lisa McCreesh, and my current role is Deputy Regional Manager for Scotland and the North. But I am also the local inspector for parts of CPCW, so for parts of Cheshire and also for Warrington. So just a brief overview of what I'd like to cover today, which is sort of like regulation during the COVID-19 pandemic. So some of these aspects are within my remit, such as our approach to pharmacy inspections and providing support during the COVID-19 pandemic. But I'll also cover temporary registration, which was there to support the workforce during the pandemic, a little bit of information about professional registration, and then some up and coming sort of priorities for the GPhC. So an update on where we're up to with the changes for education and training for pharmacists, and also sort of managing concerns about pharmacy professionals. There's a strategy consultation coming up. What we'll say is if I complete the presentation, and then if there are any questions, I'll take them at the end. And obviously then as well, if there's any questions that come up in the chat sort of box as well, I can deal with them at the end. So regulation during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as pharmacy sort of adapting to huge change in a very short period of time, the GPhC has also adapted to. The world changed almost overnight and is still changing. A lot has changed. It's been a huge challenging time, and I just want to recognise as well the important contribution that I know that everybody has made that's working in pharmacy sort of during the pandemic. This includes the support from the LPCs and at the GPhC. We've had really good feedback about how LPCs have supported contractors through this difficult time. I think it's been an area, a time of recognition. From the GPhC point of view, we have been responding in lots of different ways to continue to protect the public and also to support pharmacy professionals. One of the things that we did was to postpone sort of like the 2020 revalidation submissions. So anybody that was due to do their revalidation submission between the 20th of March and the 31st of August, that had been postponed, has been postponed completely. And then from the 1st of September up till the end of December, we're only asking for registrants to submit a reflective account when they renew. We have encouraged pharmacy professionals to reflect on their experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic when completing the account, although that isn't essential. I know some people have already made some CPD entries, and those can be saved and they can be submitted next year, so it's not that they are lost. Currently, the plan is to revert back after this deadline of December 2020. But I think that will very much be dependent on what happens during the winter months. And as said before, we've been impressed by the steps that pharmacists have taken to maintain a safe environment for patients and for staff during the pandemic, so that pharmacy teams can continue to support their patients and the communities with confidence. We've also been encouraged by the appreciation shown by many people using and valuing the services, and I think that's in recognition of all contractors out there. In response to reports of incidents, isolated incidents of violence and abuse, our Chief Executive, Duncan, did make it clear in a public statement that abuse of pharmacy staff is completely unacceptable. We also provided advice in response to issues raised to us, including advice for pharmacy staff about sort of the potential risk to their safety and also safety of patients and the public. And what that led is to a series of frequently asked questions and that are on our website, and you'll see on the slide sort of like the link to sort of those questions and answers. That was updated quite a lot during the early parts of the pandemic. We are still updating it as it is needed, but I think the queries coming through to us have considerably decreased, where I think we're seeing at this moment in time perhaps more normality of flu vaccination services, etc., and the more normal things you would see this time of year. So our approach to sort of pharmacy inspections changed. So on the 17th of March 2020, we paused our programme of routine inspections, and instead we moved to a supportive phase. We still carried out our role, but we worked differently. We worked with pharmacy owners and we worked with pharmacy teams, and this really led to sort of quite a few inspectors, including myself, sort of building relationships with LPCs sort of across the country. One of the most important things we wanted to understand from the very beginning was the challenges that were being faced by pharmacy professions. And this meant that we were able to collate this information and also share some best practice across the sector. And this is on sort of like the website and in sort of like the Knowledge Hub. There's, I think, 130 examples of notable practice that has been published. During this time, our inspectors were available to answer queries and provide support to pharmacy owners and pharmacy professionals. And this did help us build up our understanding of the challenges faced by the pharmacy profession at this time. Corporate pandemic advice team was set up as well, really to look, because we were getting quite a few of similar queries coming in, and what that we were able to do is to look at the most serious and the themes coming through to make sure that our frequently asked questions section of our website was updated and was relevant. Where we are now is that our inspectors are now starting to complete sort of re-inspections. So those inspections that at 6 months from pharmacies that had previously not met the standards. Understandably, quite a lot of these inspections are greater than 6 months, but we are working our way through as we see those as sort of risk-based. I think as well the importance of going out and inspecting these pharmacies is currently on our publication website. There are standards not met, and that gives them the opportunity to have a full inspection and the changes to be made to the inspection back to standards if indeed the standards are now met. It has been really good that where our inspectors have gone out to do these 6 months re-inspections, that they have been received sort of very positively, because I think that's always really important, that we strike the balance between regulation and making sure that we don't increase risk in the pharmacy where we go. We have received intelligence through the pandemic, and we have acted on that intelligence when it has suggested that there is an immediate risk to patient safety, and so we have undertaken and will undertake some intelligence-led inspections as well. And we continue and we will extend sort of our support calls to pharmacies, and we're continuing that even though we've gone out to re-inspection. So a little bit about our Knowledge Hub, just in case that you haven't accessed sort of like the Knowledge Hub, which is on the publication site. It's on sort of like a tab on the top of sort of like on the website. And there are some very short anonymised examples of excellent, good and poor practice, although through the pandemic, the examples are all about notable practice, so that contractors and pharmacists can use this to improve their learning and also make changes to make their practices and services safer. I think some of the examples that we've got on there are working with volunteers groups, proactively working with another pharmacy to provide access to pharmacy services, so buddying up, and some information on social media communication. So moving on to temporary registration, since the 27th of March, we have been publishing our temporary register of pharmacists and pharmacy technicians who had left the register in the last 3 years. The pharmacy professionals on the temporary register can now practice in Great Britain if they choose to do so, but they do not have to just because they're on the register. These pharmacy professionals are ones who have voluntarily removed themselves or were removed for non-renewal of fees in the last 3 years. And it's key to note that they didn't have any fitness to practice issues. The temporary register is updated regularly, and currently there are 3,497 pharmacists and 3,059 pharmacy technicians on the register. The pharmacy professionals that are on this temporary register are required to meet the standards for pharmacy professionals and very much need to work within their limits of their skills and competence. And there is a guidance for employees on their responsibilities too. On to a little bit about professional registration. So on the 21st of May, the Council of the GPhC agreed a policy for registering pharmacists on a provisional basis. This was a huge piece of work sort of within the GPhC, but was definitely sort of needed because of the restrictions due to the pandemic. So this provisional register sort of stands until the 1st of July 2021. And the criteria included pre-registration sort of students who had successfully completed their 52 weeks. They had not previously failed the registration assessment, and they had a final declaration from their tutor. All provisional registered pharmacists have to be employed directly by an organisation, so cannot work as a locum, they cannot be a superintendent, and they must practice under the guidance and direction of a senior pharmacist. They may operate as a responsible pharmacist. I know that inspectors have spoken to some sort of provisional pharmacists who seem to have settled really well into the role and are getting some really good support from the companies that they're working for. We did sort of speak to a range of stakeholders, including public and patient organisations, and they were very supportive of the professional registration. One of the things that they did want to know is if they were going to into a pharmacy, they wanted to know if a provisional pharmacist was working, and so that is why we altered the responsible pharmacist notice to make it clear that this was the way. So that's what we have been doing. So just to finish, a couple of up and coming priorities. Following the consultation in January 2019 about the changes to pharmacist education and training, the aims of these reforms was to ensure that all future pharmacists have training and skills needed to take on new and evolving roles, included extended clinical roles, and become medicines experts across sort of like all the sectors. This includes sort of like being pharmacist independent prescribers. The GPhC has worked throughout with key stakeholders to look at developing a strengthened and more integrated programme which reforms the existing 4-year MPharm degree and the 1-year pre-registration training, which you might have heard being referred to as the foundation year currently. We're looking to start these changes in July 2021, and the GPhC has communicated with the cohort of MPharm students as their pre-reg develops, so they're kept in the loop of the changes. As I've said, we have very much sort of worked together on sort of like discussions on the consultation and afterwards to make sure that this is fit to practice. And the GPhC and PSNI are working closely with organisations in sort of pharmacist education and training, including the education and training organisations in each country, the professional and student representative bodies, trade unions, and also employees. So the other real sort of like priority within the GPhC and coming out soon will be the consultation and our strategy for managing concerns about professional pharmacists. That's a little bit of a mouthful, but it is basically what I think you will know is the fitness to practice process of referrals and concerns. We have a responsibility to make sure that our fitness to practice function remains relevant and we continue to deliver our overarching objective to protect the public. We want to move away from a process which can be seen as adversarial, slow, and having unintended adverse impact on all those involved. And we want to look to take more swift action to protect patients where necessary, and at the same time to promote and encourage a learning culture which enables pharmacy professionals to address the concerns and return to practice in appropriate circumstances. The strategy sort of like gives us an opportunity to ask fundamental questions about the purpose of fitness to practice and what it means to the public that we seek to protect, and also the professionals on our register, reviewing areas of current practice and changing things for the better. The strategic aims are keeping patients and the public safe by using our full range of regulatory tools to prevent, anticipate and to resolve concerns. To take a person-centred approach that's fair, inclusive and free from discrimination and bias, and shifting the perception from blame and punishment to learning and improvement. In conclusion, the GPhC Vision 2030 sets out our ambition to be a good quality, independent regulator of pharmacy for the public, practising an anticipatory and proportionate approach to regulation. Our strategy for managing concerns about pharmacy professionals will help us to achieve this ambition. So that really is a very top line sort of information about the several areas from the GPhC. And so I just wondered, open it up to sort of questions, and I will stop sharing so I can see any chat.
Brilliant, thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. That was very informative for everyone who's tuning in just now. I'm sure for any contractors or other committee members who aren't here this evening who do view it subsequently. Does anyone have any questions for Lisa on her presentation, on the changes afoot, or anything obviously specifically in relation to COVID and what we've all experienced for the last 6 months?
Lisa, it's John Devaney. I just wanted to ask a question about your experience with the more recent visits that have happened more recently. Is there any sort of advice you would give to our contractors?
I think the way our inspectors have sort of approached it, the inspections are still unannounced because that's sort of like the way that we do inspections, but very much there is an initial conversation between the responsible pharmacist and the inspector, looking at what risk assessments and what has been put in place to protect staff and sort of like the public against transmission of the virus. And I think it's also we ask whether there is any additional sort of like restrictions or anything that needs to be put into place when visitors come, because what we're very conscious of is that the pharmacy team will be working sort of like in the dispensary and serving people. There may be a one-way system in sort of like the pharmacy, or restricting numbers into the pharmacy, and the inspector's then an additional body. So I would probably say just to think about what may happen if an inspector comes, and how you would like to work with the inspector to conduct the inspection in the most safest way for everybody.
And is there any themes, Lisa, from the visits that the GPhC could share with us in terms of things that maybe, things that we could not necessarily improve, but things that we need to focus on, or things that would from the themes that have been seen or shared on the visits that might help us practice in a particular safe way?
I think the numbers of inspections that we're doing are much reduced because we aren't doing our routine inspections. So we are just doing the 6 months sort of re-inspections. And because we've been to these pharmacies within, we would normally say the 6 months, but we've been to these inspections, to these pharmacies within sort of 9-10 months. I think the sort of learnings have been quite specific to the last inspection. The themes that I can sort of say, I suppose, from in general to do with perhaps pandemic, is that we can see that pharmacists have taken this very seriously and have really thought about the steps that they've taken to operate safely, both for their staff and for the people coming in there. And that is really evident. Not all pharmacists are wearing sort of like PPE masks because they can social distance. But that is what I suppose one of the examples is that when an inspector comes, then sort of masks are then sort of put on by the pharmacy team, because it is very often a lot more difficult to social distance when you've got an inspector on the premises who is in your dispensary and isn't aware of the ways of working.
Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Okay.
One of the things that came up at our meeting earlier on today actually was us doing a bit more support for the temporary registrants that we have in the Cheshire and Wirral area, Cheshire, Wirral and Warrington. So I suppose more an invitation rather than a question is, as we go on and progress that work, it was an invitation to you to come and be part of it or to feed into it in some way. So perhaps that's something we take in our regular catch-ups, which I really have appreciated actually from an LPC Chief Officer point of view. Maybe that's what we take on to see how we can work with that together.
Absolutely. The sort of like reviewing and supporting the professional registrants is not just from an inspection point of view. It is a whole GPhC role, but certainly the inspectors will be sort of like involved in supporting. And certainly if we make a supported call and there's a pharmacist, provisional pharmacist working, or indeed we do an inspection, then we will be looking to have conversations about how they're doing and how they're being supported, and any risk assessments, etc. So certainly how we can sort of do that proactively, sort of like within sort of like the sort of Cheshire and the Wirral area will be really good. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, John, for your questions. Anybody, any other questions for Lisa? No? If that's the case, then so as not to drag out the AGM and our presentation for the sake of it, I'd just like to thank everyone very much who has attended the AGM this evening. And for those of you who watch subsequently, I hope you do find it informative. As already said, if there is anything brought up either from Lisa's presentation and from the AGM papers, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and we can always pass your queries on to Lisa. And all that leads me to say is thank you very much, Lisa, for taking the time to present to us, to give us all a valuable update. And as I said before, it's very nice to see you again. And for everyone else, thank you very much for this year's AGM. CPCW will continue to work throughout the year in these circumstances, which obviously we can tell this week are not going to improve in the short term. So we might well be into wave 2 and be starting all over again at some point. And other than that, thank you very much, everyone. And for the AGM, I will see you same time, same place. Well, possibly not the same place, this time next year. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Gordon.